All right, guys, we're back for season 7 of Talking Preps. We're out here at the beautiful Jerry Richardson Stadium in North Charlotte. We're here with Coach Big Poggi, who's the new football coach at Charlotte. And Coach, I'm looking at this beautiful stadium. I'm just wondering what you envision 5 years from now for a home game in Charlotte. What's it going to look like 5 years from now?
It'll be 46,000, almost 47,000 seat capacity. We have plans to expand, and will be an indoor facility. And I expect every seat to have a backside.
You expect to turn around this program really, really fast. Why do you feel so bullish about how well you can do it in year 1 even?
Well, football games are never won by coaches. They're won by players.
Yeah.
And we have really good players. Really good players.
And so, Coach, with this being, in Charlotte, it's being a real hotbed for, not just local recruiting, but national recruiting, how important is it to you as a head coach to really, get in the local high schools and, put your name out there as, hey, we're Charlotte and we're here to, recruit you and that kind of thing?
Well, it's critical because before I took the job, I had one of my young friends up at the University of Michigan. I asked him how many players in a 90-minute radius from Charlotte's campus in the last 5 years played Power 5 football.
Yeah.
It was over 200.
Yeah.
And we don't have any of those guys on our roster. We do now because we've gotten a lot of guys through the portal, so it's critical. And actually, I didn't even go out on the road when I first got here. I just stayed in Charlotte. Met Sam Griner and Chad and all those guys.
Mm-hmm. What is it about Charlotte that drew you to the job? When you're coming from Michigan, what was it about this place that said, hey, I want to go there and do it there?
A couple things. New football program. Mm-hmm. So I like the fact that it's new. Mm-hmm. Hadn't been very successful.
Yeah.
I like the fact that we're building something. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't have been nearly as enticing if, you're taking over for a very successful coach that's retired. He's built a program. I want to build a program here. Mm-hmm. And it's a really good school. Yeah. There's a lot of great academic programs here. And you come here, you're going to get a great degree. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of great graduate programs here, too. Yeah. The other thing that's interesting to me is Charlotte is a city. Charlotte is the banking capital of the country, no matter what anybody says. Yeah. They say it's number 2. It's really
number
not.
2, yeah.
It's number 1. And de facto, it's number 1 in the world, right? Because we have the biggest GDP in the world. And my background in business just seemed to work. There were so many possibilities to get the Charlotte community involved in our program, like internships with our players, financial literacy, which we're doing with our players. It just made so much sense for somebody with my background.
Yeah. Now, I've sensed a little bit of frustration from you, though, since you've been here. You went on the radio, you talked about lack of financial support with Charlotte. You were at the AAC Media Day, you were mad about the 3 questions. Talk about the disrespect and the financial things you want to see happen here.
Well, the financial things are, look, Charlotte is a really, really wealthy city.
Yeah.
And, there are more Fortune 500 and 1,000 companies moving here every day than any place on the planet. Why? Because financing is here. If you're a business, you want to be close to banks, right? And financial companies. And there's a lot of very successful people here in real estate and other things. And I just, feel like having a successful Division I football program at Charlotte is critical because the city has everything. Got a pro football team, pro soccer team, pro basketball team, symphony, and great arts. And this is our university. This is Charlotte's university that has a Division I football program.
Right.
And so I know how much having a Division I football program that's successful means to the school and means to the state and most importantly means to the city. And so it is a symbiotic relationship that I'd just like to see develop.
So you want to see more of the alumni giving back, or you want to see more businesses giving back?
I want to see alumni. I want to see businesses. I want to see individuals who have, who maybe went to a different school, right? Like your alma mater, Chapel Hill or NC State or some of those places, that live and work in Charlotte and take an awful lot of money out of Charlotte.
Right.
Okay, you didn't go to Charlotte.
Right.
Fine. But your career has been in Charlotte.
Right.
So this is really important for the school, for the city, and we have one chance to do it.
So does winning help that? You know,
Winning's
if you're
critical.
going to go 7-8
We,
wins.
we have to win.
Yeah.
And if we do, I think that things will be people will be very excited. Look, there hasn't been a lot to be excited about here, and I'm just another coach that comes in and makes all kinds of promises and things. But I think as I said, players win games, not coaches, and people will see. Right, the proof's in the pudding.
Yeah, I get a sense you're a little bit frustrated though with the perception of Charlotte football. I know you guys are brand new in the AAC this year, but you were mad about those 3 questions.
Yeah, it was.
Tell us, what was it that kind of just hit you with that?
Well, I mean, football teams are like they last for 1 year. They're like in Dickens's great novel. They're like the ghost of Christmas past, right? Christmas present. They last for a season. So last year's Charlotte team isn't this year. It's like ridiculous comparing them. And if people did their homework and saw who we've brought in in the portal, we brought in 52 guys. Most of them are Power 5 players, like great players.
Right.
And I know respect has to be earned, and I don't really care so much about respect or disrespect. I just like when I'm at a function where our player, you can disrespect me all you want, I don't care.
Right.
But when we're at a function with our players, right? Come on, and that's what ticked me off.
And so how are the players, using the motivation maybe that they've gotten from the AAC Media Day with you only getting 3 questions and you really almost standing up for them at the podium? Everybody's seen the social media videos by now, but just how are they using that as motivation for this upcoming season?
They're bad company.
Yeah.
And every one of them knows how I feel about them. Every one of them knows what happened in Dallas. And we are a highly motivated football team.
How would you describe your coaching style? Who is Biff Poggi? And I know you talked about living close to the kids and getting texts early in the morning. Obviously, they love you, but what type of coach are you? How would you describe your coaching style?
I'm here because of one reason: the players. I love the kids. We have unbelievable human beings on the team. The ones we've inherited and the ones we've brought in. And I remember what it was like to be a kid. You know, and I think college football is it is a great breaker of youngsters. They have goals. They played for high school coaches that have loved them and cared about them, been part of family. And college football coaches, on the Pinocchio scale, if it's 0 to 10, they're a 10. Right. They know how to look at you and tell you in 30 seconds what you want to hear, not what you need to hear.
Absolutely.
And we haven't done that. And so what we've done though is we've brought back a bunch of guys who are broken. And I was like that as a kid too. I was in 8 schools before I was the 11th grade, from the other side of the tracks in Baltimore. So I tell them this: I believe God made you all a masterpiece. Yeah. And the world is tough on masterpieces. College football is especially tough on masterpieces. So you have a chip in the frame and a rip in the canvas and a smudge. And what my job is to repair that frame, sew up the canvas, clean up the smudge, and restore you back to what God made you to be. And we're going to show everybody. This is our museum here.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
We're going to let that all happen out on the field.
I have read several places where you said if we don't win, Charlotte should move on from me. Did you really say that?
Yeah, I say it again.
Why
would you have a football coach that doesn't win? I mean, that's like having a dog that doesn't listen to you, right? Or that bites you. Not great to have. So
you know something about this football team that nobody else knows.
I know a lot about this football team.
No, I mean in terms of what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Tell me, what do you think they're going to do? Can you put a number on it? We're going to win.
I think we're going to win the league.
Wow.
That's why we're here.
What's it going to take to do that? Because, I mean, for a coach to come in year one and say that's a very lofty goal.
What's it take? What did I say in the beginning? I said coaches don't win games, players
do.
We got players.
All right.
Okay. The only thing that will stop us from winning the league, in my opinion, is if I screw it up. And so if we don't win, that gets back to your question. Well, I screwed it up. And, we have scoreboards on campus. Sports is like business. You keep score.
Yeah.
And so if the scores aren't good, you change the CEO. And I'm the CEO, and I shouldn't be here if we're not successful.
Wow. How long do you see yourself being here? I mean, coaches are coaching into their 70s now on a regular basis. How long do you see yourself?
I'd like to be here for a long time,
Mhm.
but I don't want it to take a long time for us to be good. I don't think that's fair to the university.
Mhm.
I don't think it's fair to the students here. I don't think it's fair to the fans here. It's not fair to the players that we're recruiting. So I'd love to be here for look. I'm one of those guys. If I wasn't doing this, I'd probably be sitting in a rocking chair somewhere with somebody feeding me oatmeal. You know, I wouldn't last long, right?
Right.
I'd be gone, and I might not last long as it is, but I'd like to go out, you know, coaching.
And for the 49er fans watching, you know, who are some? I know it's still early, still got camp to go through, but who are some of the standout players that have caught your eye early on here in the summer?
How much time do you have?
Give me a
You love
give me a
them all.
couple
We'll
sentences.
start on defense. You know,
Okay.
Yabi Anoma, Stone Handy, Des Morgan, Katron Evans. These are all guys in the front.
Mhm.
Julius Welshkoff, Emmanuel Bolligan, Mike Kelly. I mean, we're really deep, really deep. John Wallace. We got a lot of really, really good football players, and you know, as you move to the linebackers, we got some great linebackers. You know, Prince Bima and Osita's a great player, and Boykins is a great player, transfer from the University of South Carolina. Makayla Green was a starter at Michigan. You know, we're very deep. Reed Williford's a young, really good player that was here. So love that group. And in the back, you know, we have some great players. You know, Ali is a great player. Dante Balfour that came over from Chapel Hill, great player. Day Hollins came over from Chapel Hill, great player. C.J. Burton came from Boston College, great player. Elijah Culp, great player. Isaiah Taylor, we got a lot of good football players.
You're naming a lot of Power 5 guys.
Yeah.
To your point earlier,
Yes.
you got a lot of Power 5 guys here. You talked about, when we were talking earlier, you're going to play a lot of guys. You know, you're going to take that Michigan attitude over here. Kind of explain that to people, what they're going to see.
Well, players want to play. And if you're going to have a roster full of good players, you got to play them. So, you know, if you play 40 or 50 plays here on defense, that's a lot of reps.
Right.
Because we got really good players that work really hard. And the other thing is you want players on the field that are fresh. No player wants to play when they're really tired, because you know what happens? You get hurt or you don't put down good film. And all these kids want to play in the NFL.
Right.
So we want them to have the opportunity to put great film down. And so we're going to play. We'll play 11 up front. We'll play 6 linebackers. We'll play a bunch of guys in the back. Offensive line, we go 9 deep.
Wow.
Which is really rare.
Yeah.
We have 3 quarterbacks we love. We're going to play them all. We have a great stable of running backs. We have a tight end room that's totally loaded. So we're going to play a lot of, we're going to play a lot of those guys, and because they've earned it. You know.
I know we need to wrap it real quick, but I wanted to ask you about NIL before we get out of here. What's your thoughts on NIL, and how is it going to work here in Charlotte as you try to build this program and compete with other schools who are offering pretty big NIL packages?
Yeah. Well, most of the time, I tell the kids this. Most of the time, you get promised some big NIL package. You've read in the news where it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Right. Here's where NIL happens. It happens for quarterbacks in college or a Heisman candidate running back.
Right.
Really doesn't happen the way people think it happens for everybody else.
Right.
A lot of people don't like NIL, especially the older football guys. They don't like it, right?
Right.
But I say to them this: whether you like it or you don't like it, the NCAA was sued, they lost, and players have the right to benefit from their name, their image, and their likeness.
Yeah.
All these schools are making millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars on these young kids. And most of the kids that play college football now are from very disadvantaged backgrounds. So I'm all for them doing well. And we have a collective, and the way that collective works is businesses put money and people put money in that collective. It goes through our exchange, which is at the school, and then it is a direct contract with our players. And we have a lot of guys on NIL now. We haven't played a game yet. And with a city like Charlotte, we're going to have a lot more. So I expect us to be as competitive as anybody in the NIL area. Now, we're not going to do the dumb stuff where, like, hey, some NIL lawyer represents a quarterback and he calls me and says, hey, you got to give this guy $800,000 to sign and a business and an apartment, forget it. Go someplace else. We're not doing that.
Right. You talked about this being bad company. What is there a slogan around how you guys are going to play, or does the bad company fit that as well?
Well, that is the slogan.
That is the slogan.
Yeah, so when we get in that rectangle right there,
Mm-hmm.
120 by 53 and a half, it is all business. All business.
All right. Well, Coach, thanks for coming on with us, man. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. So we're back with our panel now. Got my man Cameron Williams back for year 2. Chris Hughes, the guru, the #1 voice of high school football in North Carolina. The star of the show, Sam Griner, who thinks he's going to win the Queen City Conference Championship. Win the Queen City Conference Championship. And Jonathan Grice. Yeah, it is. And Jonathan Grice, #2 voice of high school football, #1 show in the state. I'm just pleased to be working with these guys. We got to start right with Chris Hughes' rankings. Ooh. Chris, you got Grimsley #1 in 4A. What else you got?
I got a lot of really good teams, and I tell people this all the time. 10 teams made the 4A rankings because these are 10 really elite teams. I think you could go 40, 50 teams deep of just really, really solid football teams.
Club.
In the 4A. Yeah, you're right. Grice named it. 4A Fight Club, he's 336 paid, or 336 made, 704 paid. Well, there's a lot of teams in the 336 that are going to be really good, including some that's not even on this ranking that I think the guru missed already, like teams like Mountain Tabor. But you look through there, Huff. Obviously, Grice knows a little about that program, coaching change, Independence, Butler. We'll get a chance to see them go after it later in the year. Weddington, I think Weddington's a sneaky little giant right there that could come up there and could win any game they play.
Got to the semifinals last year.
Coach Capone has just proved year in. I don't even think Coach Capone's lost like 8 games yet in his career. Something
he's
crazy
doing
like
that Broadwich kind of record.
Carter Gibbons, East Forsyth. East Forsyth's another one of those 336 teams that is going to be really good. Unlike in previous years where they're really heavy on D1 talent, I think East Forsyth is just really solid at every spot. And, they don't have that D1 talent, but they're going to be really good. And you look here locally, Chambers, Mallard Creek.
Chambers didn't like being ranked number 10, by the way.
That's okay. Again, I'm going to go back to my earlier statement. The fact that they're in the top 10 shows that they're at that elite level.
Yeah. Sam, is this a year where 4A, I know you're not in 4A, but this a year where 4A is wide open?
Yes, this is the one year that I would say Grimsley would be at the top. But still, it's like a lot of teams got better and a lot of teams dropped off from the significant powerhouse ability. I think you have legit 10 teams that can win the state championship in 4A.
Let's talk about
you couldn't.
Let's talk about 3A team Sam's familiar with. Sorry, Sam.
That's fine.
Kings Mountain's #1. Kings Mountain beat Sam in the playoffs last year.
Because
Sam didn't have a kicker.
Yeah, that's true.
Sam didn't have a kicker.
Long snapper.
And we told him to have, it was long snapper. And we told him to have special teams.
Gotta have it.
He doesn't care about, all he cares about is a quarterback to hand the ball to the running back. That's all he cares about.
I care about winning. That's all I care
Tell me about 3A, Guru.
Well, we're going to start right there with Kings Mountain. It's a team with a brand new coach, Coach Straight Heron, and we've seen here locally what he's been able to do in the 4A, the 3A ranks. Well, it didn't matter who he played nationally, locally. South Point and Rock Hill was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
He comes together. He put together a phenomenal coaching staff. Yeah. Already had a very talented cupboard full of talent. And that's a team that under Greg Lloyd, before he got there, that was averaging between 10 and 12 wins a year for the past decades. Kings Mountain's been no stranger to success.
Yeah.
Let's look right there in Cleveland County. You want to talk about a 4A fight club. Cleveland County's got like a scuffle that we just can't even comprehend. All those teams in there are really good. Cleveland County right there with them. Coach Jim Sosby and Crest, I think they're really good. Of course, we've talked about the 336 teams. Dudley right there in the mix. East Lincoln, defending state champion. Northern Nash, who lost in the state championship game. They're still very much going to be in the mix. If Coach Andrew Ferris can replace a quarterback, they could very easily be the number 1 team.
Got West Charlotte 10, Chris.
West Charlotte's really
good. This man
good.
said he's going to win.
Well, let's look at some of the teams.
He's going to win the Queen City.
Let's look at some of the teams in front of him. Look at AC Reynolds. Dropped down from 4A into 3A. Let's not forget AC Reynolds. They took Butler.
You don't want to go to AC Reynolds.
They took Butler to the woodshed in the playoffs. AC Reynolds is really good. Yeah.
Max Guest is the name that you got to remember.
South Point, North Brunswick.
You don't want to play at South Point.
Yeah,
and my team right here. Big WC, the pride of the West Side.
No one believes in us. Last year they said we were going to get beat by 40 or something by Kings Mountain.
They did. Somebody at this table said
I did not say 40. I said 14.
Somebody at this table
I don't know about that.
All right, 2A, Chris. 2A.
2A from top to bottom may be one of the most competitive. These aren't teams that necessarily could go up and play with a West Charlotte or a Butler or Mallard Creek. But from top to bottom, they're really good. Clinton has just put together.
The dark horses.
I don't
Dark
want to
horses.
use this is high school football, and I don't want to get our dear friend Alex Bass into a tizzy. But Clinton has put together an incredible roster. You can read between the lines on that, but Clinton is going to be really, really, really good. Coach Corey Johnson and what he's done. I watched.
So is it over? Like 4A is wide open. Is 2A over?
Nah, it ain't over.
It ain't over.
Corey Johnson's put together a great roster, but look at 2A: Wallace, Rose Hill, Reedsville, Monroe, right down the road in here,
Always the same, always in there.
Salisbury,
Yeah.
Forest Hills. I just talked to Coach Jamie Deeks at Forest Hills. They're loaded.
Oh, yeah.
West Craven, Burns. Oh, hey, another Cleveland County team, Burns.
The best county in North Carolina is probably Cleveland County. Sounds like, yeah. Talk about 1A, Chris. We got Mount Airy at the top.
Same old thing. I mean, inserts of teams right there. You seem to have year in and year out the same 1A teams just go in there and dominate. A lot of that's just based off school size and enrollment, but a lot of it's also just great coaches.
Yeah.
Great traditions in
Tradition.
1A. Those schools are always at the top.
Mount Airy, defending state champion. Tarboro, they lost like 10 games in 20 years or something like that.
Tarboro, too.
Robbinsville, we've talked a lot about our guy Cutler up there.
Yep,
He's still running. I think
That's
he's
Grice's guy.
I think
That's
he's,
Grice's
I think
guy.
he's rushed for like
Cutler,
13,000 yards
Yeah.
since like the 9th grade or something like that.
Cutler, you
got
got to get you
some
on,
great
man.
teams.
You got to get you on.
Hey, one of my dark horse picks, Northampton County, up there in the northern part of the state.
Wow.
Coach George Privet, they're a team that I think could really come in and kind of stir some things up from the east. Maybe, and he thinks that they're a little closer than they've been. They might have something for Tarboro.
I've heard all summer long the Providence Day is the best football team in North Carolina. You're good friends with Chad Greer.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree with that?
On a one-game day basis, yes, they are the best team in the state. I think that their depth, if they went through a 4A schedule throughout, I think it would be tough to be an undefeated season because of the depth. But if you have one game to play, I think they're the best team in the state. Yes.
Raven Gap is going to be really good. They're always
doubt.
good every year. Can Raven Gap get them this year?
I think they've got a
them last
shot.
year.
They almost got him last year. Took a heroic performance. I think Jay Davis had almost 400 yards. Them getting in Anthony Quinn from 71st, they made a run. I feel like the arms race is on in private schools. So I think they're building their identity. They're going to run the ball. They got that massive offensive line full of guys from good knows where that are going to go in there everywhere, and they're going to control the clock and try to keep that Providence Day offense off the field. Their plan already, we know, is well established, and they're trying to go make a run.
Charlotte Christian beat Providence Day last year in the regular season. Can they do it again? Got a new coach, Bryce Young, going to Notre Dame. They got talent over there. They got two guys going to Notre Dame. They got talent. What do you think?
I think Providence Day is more talented. I think they're more experienced this year. Maybe like, they said if they played a 4A schedule through and through, it might be tough to go undefeated.
But can Charlotte Christian beat them in the regular season?
I don't think so. I think Providence Day goes undefeated.
All right, well, we're going to come back to Providence Day. We're going to talk about some of the big games. Chris, you got your eye on 71st at Richmond is one of your big games. Why is that going to be a big deal?
Well, we talked about Anthony Quinn. 71st was my number one team in the 3A until he left for Raven Gap.
It never was West Charlotte, right? Let's be clear.
You're way down there.
Yeah,
they were a yard away from going to the state championship game last year. 71st was just a phenomenal team. What Coach Darren McLaren has done down there is phenomenal. I know a little bit about them coaching against Fayetteville and Richmond teams. I've looked at what Brian Till's done. Richmond's just been a little bit off, and by Richmond standards, they've been way off. It's just not acceptable. But I've kind of been keeping my eyes on them from a distance, looking at some of the talent, looking at what they've been doing. I think Richmond could be a team. I'm not going to sit here and say Richmond's back because
numbers are back though.
4A is 50 deep, but I do think Richmond's
North Carolina high school football is always good. Richmond's good, and we can get Brian Till on the show.
I do think Richmond County's a little bit closer to getting close to top 25 than they were. And you're right. Richmond County's good. North Carolina high school football's good.
Big game at Memorial Stadium, Hudson Burns. What do you think there?
I think it's going to be a phenomenal game. It didn't make the cut for Game of the Week because I think both of these teams are great regardless. No matter what happens in this game, you can't tell me that both of these teams aren't going to make a major state championship run. It's going to storm. I think I got my money on game two. My money's in the pot for game two.
Who's game two?
It's West Charlotte.
Oh, okay.
But that's my money right now in the pot. I've got game two. I think Langston's thinking game three.
It's always game three.
I think game two is, but it's always game two, or if it's a two-game slate, the first game that pushes it back. Game two is my money. Well, hopefully we don't get that because I think this is going to be a classic.
Yeah, Burns had one of their players passed away, so prayers to Burns' community, and
definitely.
And I'm sure that game will be very well attended. Memorial Stadium will be packed out. Shelby Kings Mountain.
longest running or the oldest rivalry in the state of North Carolina. Obviously, A.L. Brown and Concord is the longest continuous.
Is the
running.
ticket line already going right now?
It's probably going around.
Yeah.
Shelby, this is a make or break year for Shelby. They have been.
They had one off season, man. Come on, they won like 98 state championships. That's the #1 program in North Carolina.
Transfer portal seems to be real in high school sports these days. They've lost a lot of players. We call it what it is, and
where did they go to? Crest?
You trying to get the guru in trouble? You trying to get the guru in trouble? Don't get the guru in trouble.
People watch your show for a reason. Let's go.
All I'm saying, Shelby is still phenomenally well coached.
Yeah.
They got a lot of pride, and they got a lot of talent. They got a lot of fans.
But they're running into a buzzsaw, is
speed.
what you telling me. Week 1.
I think they can compete. I don't think they're going to be favored. I think Kings Mountain probably will pull away and win. But if we come back here next week and find out that Shelby won that game,
I'm not
going to be surprised.
Oh, hold on. Let's back this up for 1 second. Right. He has Kings Mountain ranked what in the 3A?
#1.
Where do you have Shelby? Are they even in your top 10?
2A?
They're 9.
And you're telling me that a 2A team,
notes. They're not there.
And you said you wouldn't be surprised that they beat a Kings Mountain.
Okay, let me explain. I've been around the game of high school football since before you were born, by the way.
I'm a little older than you.
I can still remember guys like Ethan Horton and Tracy Johnson and guys like that running all over football fields back in the 70s and 80s. Games like this, sometimes uncommon men or common men do uncommon things. Rivalry games. And you know what? A first-year sophomore that we know nothing about could come up in that game, and he could play way up here in the rafters.
Grimsley, Mount Tabor.
Well, obviously, we know Grimsley's the #1 ranked team in the 4A, but I'm going to say I think I've slept on Mount Tabor. I've been looking at a lot of film.
We get a lot of emails about Mount Tabor.
Tyshawn Brown has really, he won a 4A championship a couple years ago. Yeah. Tyshawn Brown has done a great job at Mount Tabor in the last 5 years. I remember when he played on that great 98 team. Gosh, I'm dating myself. Mount Tabor has done a great job in the 7-on-7s, which I still say it's fake football. But I think Mount Tabor is a team to keep your eyes on. They may not win early in the season, but again, they very well may.
Memorial Stadium, you go into the game, Providence Day is going to play Northwestern. Sam thinks any one-game scenario they can win. Can they beat Northwestern, which is #1 in the coaches poll in 4A down there?
I think they can, and I think they will. I think it's going to be a shootout-type game, both high-powered offenses. You got Jaden Davis on Providence Day, #1 quarterback in the state, and you got Finley Polk, who's a phenomenal quarterback, only a junior down there at Northwestern. So it's going to be fun to watch. Which defense is going to step up? That's the main question.
All right, one of my favorite parts of the show, we got Grice's breakdowns. You're going to start out with Mallard Creek Independence.
I think this is going to be one of the most intriguing games of week 1. And again, I think when we look back after the season's over, kind of do our season wrap up, this game is going to kind of give the direction to both teams. My 3 keys I always like to give at this game. We got to start with the man here, probably the biggest star in this game of Justin Little. He's got to continue to show his elite status. I think, he emerged as probably the breakout player in 4A last year. He's on a big scene here. This is a night game. Everybody is coming in the city on Thursday night for this game. He's got to show up and show up big. I mean, when you talk about, the Independence offense versus the Mallard Creek defense, I think those are the 2 elite, sides of the ball as it pertains to this game. If he shows up big, look out. This could be a major big-time win for Independence. Okay. Second, we got the quarterback on the other side. So you got Evan Rambert, of course, newly stepping in as a junior, played a little bit last year, started the playoff game against Huff, did a pretty good job, kept them kind of in the game last year. He's got to take a big step. He's got to take a big step in this game, versus an Independence defense that we know is starting to grow. You got the young Dallas Brandon, a D1 guy. I think he's a sophomore. Quentin Reddish, we've all talked about, has 30, 40 offers. It feels like he's getting a new offer every day. These are some young, hungry guys, and I think, Coach Rankin on the defensive side of the ball is going to really expect those guys to be big-time players. Evan Rambert's got to be smart with that ball and that ball control offense from Mallard Creek. Cannot turn the ball over, and if he does, it's going to be a long day for them. And, finally, kind of staying on that same piece, the Mallard Creek offense has to find a spark. I mean, we saw it last year with the game. I was on the field with Myers Park, and we knew that Myers Park team wasn't great, but Mallard Creek really started slowly. I thought while they did control the game, it was a lot closer than it had to be, and really that the score indicated. You can't do that this year against Independence. You start out slow offensively. Justin Little is going to have those 1 or 2 bright moments getting that ball out. So they've really got to find that spark on offense, get some big plays early, and they actually were able to do that. Last year I felt like had some big runs early, but they've got to really get some points on the board to keep their defense in check, keep this score under wraps.
Who's winning?
I think Independence.
Independence.
I think Independence wins that conference.
got a big game in the Wake County area. Butler playing at Rolesville.
Yeah, I like both of these schedules. If you look at the non-conference for Rolesville, you see them playing Cardinal Gibbons. You have this game. They are really going out and testing themselves. First year coach Rainier Rackley, taking over this program. They're going to be good. We know about Noah Rogers. He burst on the scene to the Charlotte area, with that big state championship game, even in the defeat. But that performance let everybody know Rolesville continues to have, some quality guys in that area. Yeah. Butler the same way. We look at that non-conference schedule. Them going playing Langston Hughes in Georgia. Them continuing to show. We know Brian Hales is not scared of competition, and I think that game is going to be a really good game. Rolesville's got to show again. Last year was the East Forsyth game, which was a massive victory for East Forsyth, and showed pretty early that we talked about East Forsyth. I know you were really big on them, Guru, at our first meeting last year. They showed very quickly that they are a team to mess with. But again, I stay with the quarterbacks. I always say in high school football, elite quarterbacks really show themselves and show what they can do. Mm-hmm. Talk about another one, Zach Lawrence. Has got a ton of D1 opportunities, a ton of D1 talent. When he's great, Butler is elite. Mm-hmm. He's got to be great, got to show up early in this game. It's the first big game of I call it a brutal non-conference slate. There are very few teams, save for Mallard Creek's continued insanity with their non-conference schedule. There are very few teams that play the schedule that Butler has, but also I think that they're priming for that state championship run. So Zach Lawrence has got to be there. With Rolesville, I think, you got a lot of new. You got a new head coach. There's, probably a new offense. Who's going to really be the one to break, to break on that scene in a Noah Rogers-esque,
they don't have that star
way. Yeah. They don't have that guy, but as, even as Guru alluded to earlier, who's going to be the guy to emerge to be that go-to guy on that team? So we're excited to see what's going to happen there. And then finally, Rolesville's got to take that step. If they're going to be competitive there, they've built their schedule in such a way. They've got Butler. They've got Cardinal Gibbons. Mm-hmm. Those are two non-conference games. We're going to learn a lot about Rolesville, I think, with Coach Rackley's first 4 games. And if they're a team that's going to be state championship contender, or are they a team that's going to kind of be an also-ran 7-8, win team and maybe potentially be a tough out in the second, third round. Right. So these 2 games to me are very pivotal in determining these teams' future. And I know it's hard to say that about week 1, but they've set their schedule up in such a way that we're going to know a lot about them in the beginning.
Man, he did all that in one take.
Yeah, that's great.
If you think you're watching ESPN or something, this guy, I'm telling you.
He's unreal. He's unreal.
Well, that's a wrap for week 1 of Talking Preps. We'll be back after the first week of games. We'll have coach versus coach. We'll have Sam taking on some kid that's going to beat him up in the game show. We'll have all the fun stuff. We're going to have fresh faces, all that stuff, player of the week, all that stuff's coming back. So please watch. That's Cameron. That's Chris, the #1 voice of high school football. Sam Griner, who's going to win a 3A state title, he says. Is that right?
We're going to win one.
There it is. On record. There it is. Jonathan Grice, #2 voice high school football. I'm Langston, and we are Talking Preps.